Out here in New York, Cadillac took the covers off of their all-new CT5 sedan. This is replacing, in theory, both the ATS and the CTS, but in many ways this really is a little bit more CTS than ATS. Cadillac is saying that this is now a very direct competitor to the 3 Series, the A4, the C-Class, etc. But oddly enough, this is actually still about the same size as the CTS overall. We have the same sort of Cadillac design language going on up front that we saw in the XT6, a slight modification of the art and science theme we've had for a while, but it is still definitely angular. We have the waterfall light pipe right there that goes from the upper section down to the lower section, LED headlamps, etc. And of course, they're hiding everything really neatly behind that Cadillac logo. That's where you'll find the radar sensor. Although they're calling this a compact luxury sedan, this is actually 1 inch longer than the Lexus GS. And it's a little bit closer to the 5 Series than the 3 Series in terms of overall shape. So although they're saying that this is not a tweener, it really still is. But I have to say that that actually is a great thing in my mind, because we get considerably more interior room, considerably more legroom than we find in a 3 Series or an IS or an A4, etc. And I like the overall proportions, which I think wouldn't be possible if they were to make this any smaller. We have a definite trunk back here, and they really have avoided trying to split this last pillar, which is a design theme that we've seen in other vehicles. Now, folks out there have pointed out that this right here is not actually a window, and some are a little bit disappointed in that, but it does help complete the profile as it goes to the rear. So this section is actually glass, this section is just a plastic blank. Moving over to the rear, we again see a modification of the same design language that we see in Cadillac's other products with very similar tail lamp modules. They do expand a little bit out there. CT5 on the trunk lid. And over here we see the new Cadillac naming scheme, 350T. They're changing the way they have all of their vehicles labeled, and that's going to be what we're going with forward. It relates to the amount of torque that the engine produces. Speaking of engines, we aren't able to look under the hood just yet, but there are going to be 2 engines at the start. A 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine producing 237 horsepower, and then an optional 3-liter turbocharged V6 that will produce 335 horsepower. Both of those numbers are pretty competitive in this segment, whether we're talking about a mid-size luxury vehicle or a compact luxury vehicle. Sending power to the rear wheels is a segment-first 10-speed automatic transmission, and you'll have the choice of all-wheel drive regardless of the engine that you choose. Now, we don't know anything yet about a V Sport or a dedicated V model of the CT5, but you can bet that it's really only a matter of time. The interior design is also an evolution rather than a revolution for the Cadillac brand, which again I think is a good thing. We have a round steering wheel over here, which is very nicely done, perforated sections right there in the middle, paddle shifters on the back, large Cadillac logo in the middle. Behind that we find a combination of analog and digital gauges. There's what looks to be about a 7-inch LCD right there behind it. Unfortunately, this vehicle is not on, so we can't take a closer look. There's a touchscreen navigation positioned on the dashboard, sort of like a pop-up screen, although this does not actually move. It's very similar to what we see in the Cadillac XT4. It is a touchscreen, and there is a controller knob in the center of the dashboard, so you can actually choose how you want to interact with the system. The button bank is very similar to what we see in other Cadillac models, and the overall fit and finish quality appears to be very high, just as you'd expect for a vehicle in this category. But the overall thing that I get from sitting in here is that this definitely feels a little bit larger and a little bit more comfortable than a BMW 3 Series or a Mercedes-Benz C-Class. You'll really notice the size difference when you hop back here into the rear seats, because it looks like we have more legroom in here according to the numbers than the Infiniti Q50. Of course, you will have to wait until we can get our hands on one of these to be sure. But with that front seat easily adjusted for me, I still have about 4.5 inches of legroom left. Now, headroom is still limited, just as we find in most luxury sedans, so I do have to crane my head over to one side if I want to approach that armrest out back. Speaking of armrests, again, we have a fold-down armrest like you'd expect to find in a luxury car, and as with the front, the big thing you'll notice back here is that this is a little bit wider than something like a Lexus IS. Cadillac decided to give the CT5 a little bit more of a fastback style going on here rather than a traditional sedan, so that does mean that we have a slightly smaller trunk lid than we find in some of the other options here, but it is still very tall, and it looks like we definitely have a sizable trunk if you were to compare this to the average compact car in America. According to Cadillac, the CT5 goes on sale this fall, so you will be able to get it in calendar year 2019, although we don't know exactly how much this is going to cost. However, with all the comparisons that Cadillac has been making to the average compact luxury car in America, this is probably going to be priced closer to something like the Lexus IS or the BMW 3 Series than a Lexus GS or the BMW 5 Series. And that suits me just fine, because I think this is really where Cadillac shines, giving us a vehicle that really will likely have the performance ability and the handling ability that you'd expect out of a compact luxury car, with a little bit more room on the inside and probably a more attractive starting price as well. Until we can get our hands on one for a complete review, be sure and hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of our latest videos, including, hopefully, an upcoming video on the CT5 as well. In the meantime, be sure and check out the other videos from the New York Auto Show, and I'll see you later.